everyone, welcome to my recipe book with me, Tarika, where today I'm going to be making cinnamon rolls. So everyone will tell you that cinnamon rolls are very time consuming to make and the recipe is complicated, but I'm going to show you how to break it up into steps, and if you follow this recipe, it's going to come together in a jiffy. So what are we waiting for? Let's roll! So I'm going to start with some warm milk, and I'm going to dissolve some instant dry yeast into this milk. Now I know that usually you do this with active dry yeast and not the instant variety, but this is something that I learned very recently, and trust me, it works. And the milk is warmed to just about 45-50 degrees Celsius. You always can check the warmth of this milk by sticking your finger into it. If you can dip your finger into the milk for about 30 to 40 seconds comfortably, and it's just about lukewarm, then that's the right temperature. I'm just going to let this yeast dissolve in the milk and just set it aside for 5 minutes and get working with the rest of the recipe. So I've got 400 grams of all-purpose flour here. And I'm going to add the most important element to making bread, sugar. This recipe needs about 50 grams of just regular granulated sugar. And just a teaspoon of salt. So now I'm just going to use this wooden spoon here. I'm using a wooden spoon today. So I'm just going to stir it in and mix the sugar and the salt into the flour. And sometimes I make a mess, but that's only natural because I don't know anybody who isn't messy in the kitchen. So that's nicely mixed in. So what I'm going to do now is just create a bit of a well in the center and add the milk and a 1/4 cup of oil. So just use any regular kind of oil which doesn't have a strong flavor. So olive oil is a big no-no in this recipe, and just mix this in. So this is a really good consistency. So now I'm just going to flour this surface slightly and just knead it by hand for about 5 minutes. It's a decent workout. Not a very heavy workout, but a decent one. Start kneading it. I'm just going to knead it with one hand right now. So now I'm just using both hands to knead the dough because it's starting to come together really well. And you want to knead this to a consistency where it's not sticky anymore and it's really soft. So this dough is just absolutely ready now. I'm just going to shape it into a round, and I'm just going to turn this into this bowl now. I've greased the bowl with some oil, cover it, and it's time for the first rise. So there are two ways of doing this. You could either just preheat the oven just to 45 degrees Celsius and then turn off your oven, switch it off, and then leave this dough to rise in the oven for about 30 to 40 minutes and it'll really double up in quantity. Otherwise, because we've used warm milk here, you can just leave it out at room temperature and let it rise for 2 hours. So you can use either of these methods once you manage to cover the bowl. Okay. And now I'm going to leave it to rise. Okay, so while the dough is rising, I'm going to show you how to make the filling and get that in place. I've got 100 grams of dark brown sugar here, but really honestly, you can use any sugar that you like. So I'm just adding 2 tablespoons of cinnamon powder. I'm just going to mix it together. Just mix that and it just smells heavenly. This is the point where it just starts smelling heavenly here. Okay, that's done, and now the dough should be ready to roll. So you can see that the dough has risen really well, and now I'm going to roll it out and shape it into a rectangle. Just punch the air out of it slightly and just add a little bit of flour so it just makes it easier to roll out. And I'm going to roll it out roughly into a rectangle of about 15 inches by 12 inches. Okay, so that's pretty much rolled out into shape. And I have 3 tablespoons of butter that's just softened. It's not melted. I'm just going to spread it right throughout. I'm going to move on to the cinnamon sugar mixture. I'm just going to do this by hand because you can just do that more evenly that way. Just sprinkle it on. Okay, so I'm done sprinkling this and now I'm just going to start rolling this. Just, the only thing to keep in mind is to not roll it very tightly. Just be gentle. Just gently roll this. And just as you're coming to the end, just take some milk and just brush it on these edges. You can use water as well. So now what you want to do is just cut these ends off, cut these edges off. They don't have much in them. Okay, now I'm just going to cut the entire thing into half and cut that half into half. Cut each of those halves into half and just continue that way. You get the picture. So I'm going to leave some rolls as slightly fat, chunky rolls, and the others are going to be slightly thinner for, people who say, no, I just want a tiny, tiny bit. We all know people like that, don't we? So I've got this pan here, which is greased with butter, and I'm just going to place these rolls with the cut side down. Just open it up slightly. So that's one tray of nice chunky rolls and another one for the picky eaters. Okay, so now it's time for the second rise for these cinnamon rolls. I've again preheated my oven to 45 degrees Celsius and I'm just going to cover these trays with some cling film and turn off the oven and then just leave them in there for about 10-15 minutes till they rise a little bit again. These are off to the oven for one more round of rising and then we'll come back and I'll show you what I'm going to do. Okay, so you can see that these have risen really well again. Now just before baking these in the oven, I'm just going to brush them with a little bit of milk. What it helps do is just, give it a nice brown color by the time it's done baking. You can use an egg wash as well, but I've not added any egg to the dough and I'm not adding any egg wash here either. I've kept it completely vegetarian, this recipe. My oven is preheated to 180 degrees Celsius and I'm just going to pop these in for about 20 to 30 minutes. So you'll know when they're done because they'll get a nice, even, lightly browned color on the top. It's been just half an hour and these cinnamon rolls are done. They're just so beautifully browned from the top and they look really great and smell even better. You're not here to smell it, so I have to tell you. So I'm just going to let these cool for about 10 minutes on this wire rack. And in the meantime, I'm going to make the icing for these cinnamon rolls. So I've got a cup of icing sugar, which I've just sifted here. And I'm going to add half a teaspoon of vanilla extract, just a tablespoon at a time. I'm going to add some milk. You'll have to eyeball this. Even if I tell you that it's 1 or 2 tablespoons, you'll have to do this in slow additions and just whisk it into the icing sugar. So you want to add the milk till you get a nice running consistency to this icing. And if you've left it out for some time and you find it kind of hardening, just add a little bit more milk to it to get that runny texture again. So this icing is ready and the cinnamon rolls have cooled down, but they're still slightly warm, and that's the perfect time to just drizzle a little bit of the icing on them. So I'm going to be really quick with this. The cinnamon roll is still warm. I'm going to drizzle on some more icing and have it with a nice bitter cup of coffee. If you like this recipe, share it with your friends. Leave us a comment when you've tried the recipe and of course, subscribe to our channel. See ya!